Good morning once again, my brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ. Today we find ourselves in Leviticus 23 and we have a long chapter, but the topic is about the feasts and the festivals that God prescribes for his community. Remember the book of Leviticus, it's going to be on the test. It's about how do the people of God become holy to be in the presence of God. God has offered a sacrificial system to them that gives them a process that he has decreed for them to enter his presence. And today we find the feasts and festivals meant to help them remember what God's done, remember who God is, and celebrate the salvation that God provides. So we're going to go fast because there's a chart at the end of this I want to spend a minute on. But here we are again. The Lord said to Moses. So again, we understand these commands come directly from God himself. Speak to the Israelites, say to them, these are my appointed feasts, the appointed feasts of the Lord, okay, which you are to proclaim as sacred assemblies. Here's what I want you to do. Observe these things. Okay, so we start with a basic one that was found all the way back in Exodus 20 in the Ten Commandments. There are 6 days when you may work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of rest, a day of sacred assembly. And this is why we have a day where we spend our day worshiping God together. In the New Testament, Christian, it's become Sunday, but excuse me, in the old days, in this setting, it's Saturday. Don't do any work. Okay, that doesn't seem that hard to figure out wherever you live. It's the Sabbath to the Lord. So that's where he starts when he starts talking about his feasts and festivals. These are the Lord's appointed feasts, the sacred assemblies you are to proclaim at their appointed times. So here we go. The Lord's Passover begins at twilight on the 14th day of the first month. This is probably the most significant feast when we get to the New Testament. You have the Passover, you have the Feast of Unleavened Bread, you have the Pentecost celebration, but the Passover is what God used in Egypt to foreshadow the cross of Christ. The lamb is slain, the blood of the lamb covers the doorpost, death passes over that household if they're covered by the blood of the lamb. The cross models that exactly. Well, maybe not the doorpost part, but the blood of the lamb is shed. Those who have faith in Jesus Christ are covered, and they escape the wrath of God through faith in Jesus Christ. Okay, so God says, let's start here with the Passover, the 14th day of the first month. All right, on the 15th day of that month, so the next day after Passover, the Lord's Feast of Unleavened Bread begins. For 7 days you must eat bread made without yeast. On the first day, hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. For 7 days, present an offering made to the Lord by fire. And on the seventh day, hold a sacred assembly and do no regular work. You see, like this is the third or fourth time God has said, don't work during these times. The Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, when you enter the land I am going to give you, and you reap its harvest, bring to the priest a sheaf of the first grain you harvest. All right, so now we're talking about when we get to the promised land and you have a harvest. This is what I want you to do with it. Bring it to the priest, at least the first part of it. He is to wave the sheaf before the Lord, so it will be accepted on your behalf. The priest is to wave it on the day after the Sabbath. That would be a Sunday to us, because their Sabbath is Saturday. On the day you wave the sheaf, you must sacrifice as a burnt offering to the Lord a lamb, a year old, without defect. Okay, so bring your first fruit in, wave it, then sacrifice a burnt offering, a lamb, a year old without defect, together with its grain offering of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made to the Lord by fire, a pleasing aroma, and its drink offering of 1/4 of a hin of wine. Pretty specific. You must not eat any bread or roasted or new grain until the very day you bring this offering to your God. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come, wherever you live. All right, so there's a celebration of harvest. From the day after the Sabbath, the day you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, count off seven full weeks. Okay, so now we're going to get into something called Pentecost. It comes from the number 50, Penta. Okay, so we have that first day, then we have 7 weeks, that's 49 days. So 50 days after this grain offering, or waving the sheaf, I should say, we get to Pentecost. Count off 50 days. Go up to the day after the seventh Sabbath, and then present an offering of new grain to the Lord. From wherever you live, bring 2 loaves made of 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour baked with yeast. As a wave offering of first fruits to the Lord, present with this bread 7 male lambs. That would be like 1 for every week. Each a year old and without defect, 1 bull and 2 rams. They will be a burnt offering to the Lord, together with their grain offerings and drink offerings, an offering made by fire, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. Then sacrifice 1 male goat for a, sin offering, and 2 lambs a year old for a fellowship offering. Again, forgiveness, communion with God are emphasized in these feasts and festivals. The priest is to wave the 2 lambs before the Lord as a wave offering, together with the bread of the first fruits. They are a sacred offering to the Lord for the priests. So it's for the priests, and it's called a wave offering. All right, have you ever wondered in the New Testament why there's such a gap between the resurrection and the coming of the Holy Spirit at Pentecost? It's right here in Leviticus 23. There's 50 days. God honored that timing and sent the Spirit of God during Pentecost. On that same day, you are to proclaim a sacred assembly and do no regular work. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come wherever you live. Okay, you guys need to get together and worship, right? When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and the alien. I am the Lord your God. Again, verse 22, instructions on how to take care of poor people in your culture. And that is, you leave some of the food in the field so they have something to eat. The Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites, on the first day of the 7th month, you are to have a day of rest, a sacred assembly commemorated with trumpet blasts. They call this the Feast of Trumpets. We'll see more about that in a minute. Do no regular work, but present an offering made to the Lord by fire. The Lord said to Moses, the 10th day of this 7th month is, what is it? It's the Day of Atonement. Hold a sacred assembly and deny yourselves and present an offering made to the Lord by fire. Again, God is laying out a calendar for his people. Do no work on that day, because it is the Day of Atonement, when atonement is made for you before the Lord your God. Anyone who does not deny himself on that day must be cut off from his people. I will destroy from among his people anyone who does any work on that day. Wow, that's kind of serious. I will destroy from among his people. This is, again, another admonition. How many is this? I think it's 4 or 5 so far in the chapter. Don't work during these sacred times. Don't treat these things casually. You shall do no work at all. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come wherever you live. It is a Sabbath of rest for you, and you must deny yourselves. From the evening of the 9th day of the month until the following evening, you are to observe your Sabbath. What does that mean? Don't work. The Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites, on the 15th day of the 7th month, the Lord's, Feast of Tabernacles begins, and it lasts for 7 days. Okay, what's this about? The first day is a sacred assembly, same sort of beginning, for the Feast of Tabernacles. Get together, worship the Lord, no work. All right. For 7 days, present offerings made to the Lord by fire, and on the 8th day, hold a sacred assembly. Present an offering made to the Lord by fire. It is the closing assembly. Do no regular work. Then we're told this, these are the Lord's appointed feasts, which you are to proclaim as sacred assemblies for bringing offerings made to the Lord by fire, the burnt offerings and the grain offerings, sacrifices and drink offerings required for each day. These offerings are in addition to those for the Lord's Sabbaths, and in addition to your gifts and whatever you have vowed, and all the free will offerings you give to the Lord. So we see God has truly given his prescription. This is what it's going to take. This is the calendar I want you to follow. This is what I want you to do in these certain times of the year. So beginning with the 15th day of the 7th month, after you have gathered the crops of the land, celebrate the festival to the Lord for 7 days. All right, this is a harvest then. The first day is a day of rest. The 8th day is also a day of rest. Again, how many times have we been told to rest during these sacred times? On the first day, you are to take choice fruit from the trees and palm fronds, leafy branches, and poplars, and rejoice before the Lord your God for 7 days. Just get happy about who God is and how he loves you and what he's done. That sounds like fun. Celebrate this as a festival to the Lord for 7 days each year. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come. Celebrated in the 7th month. Oh, wow, look at this. Live in booths for 7 days. Wow, what is that? All native-born Israelites are to live in booths. I found a picture of one of those booths. So there's an idea. Who knows if they looked exactly like that, but there's a picture of the one I found where this is a booth that you're supposed to live in for 7 days during this festival. So your descendants will know that I had the Israelites live in booths when I brought them out of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. So Moses announced to the Israelites the appointed feast of the Lord. You remember in Matthew 17 when Jesus takes Peter, John, and James up the mountain and he is transfigured before them. Do you remember Peter's immediate reaction? Oh, we should build a booth for these guys. We should get a place going where we can all hang out for a while. Well, it comes from this. His idea comes from this. But anyway, let me move forward to this little chart. It's probably too small for you to see, but if you freeze the frame and take a closer look, it might help you. On the left is the sacred order. Okay, so the first festival is called Abib, or that's the month it happens in. It's also known as Nisan. It happens between March and April. It's the first celebration in terms of the sacred order of Israel's calendar, but it happens in their 7th month. And there you have Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits. Okay, then there's another celebration in the 3rd month, according to the sacred order, Sivan, May and June. That's the celebration of Pentecost, or the Festival of Weeks, it's called sometimes. It's the 9th month in the Hebrew calendar, okay? Then on down to the 7th in the sacred order, Tishri or Etharim, September, October. It's where the trumpets come in. The Day of Atonement is celebrated. Tabernacles and booths are also included in that time frame. If you get down to the sacred order of number 9, you end up celebrating Hanukkah, all right, or the Feast of Dedication, and then all the way down to the 12th in the sacred order, the 6th month in the Hebrew calendar, February and March, as we know it, it's called Adar, and that's when they celebrate Purim, all right? So, okay, God has order for his community, and he has a way, and this is a big thing for God, he has a way for his people to celebrate and remember what God has done. Yes, they need to obey, they need to exactly perform as God has decreed. Okay, but the point, remember what I've done. Remember how I saved you. Remember how I provided for you. Remember how I keep providing for you. Worship, rejoice, have a community, have a festival, be together as my people and I as your God. Really important. Really important. This is about God spending time with the people that he has made holy as they remember what he's done. It wouldn't hurt us at all to sit down and, how's that song go? Count your many blessings, name them one by one, right? Just remember what God has done in your life and rejoice in it. We don't have these festivals in modern Christianity, not in the same way anyway. We basically have communion and baptism as the ordinances of the Lord now. But nonetheless, we're still called to celebrate. We're still called to rejoice in the Lord always and to remember what he's done. That's it for today, church. God bless you. Serve him well.
Who is it who for sinners shed his blood, and now for cleansing all can plunge beneath that flood? It's Jesus. But do you know who he is? He's the image of the invisible God, and he's the brightness of his glory, the first, the last, the future, the past. He is God.